speaker is no stranger to LaunchPad Job Club. He is the longest serving member of our board of directors. And Marc Miller has written 2 books on the job search process. He is a renowned speaker all over the country on various topics having to do with the job search, and especially with the reinvention, career transition, changing careers, encore careers. He is an expert in a lot of different areas. He has been a past speaker at South by Southwest, and we are very fortunate to have him here. I'm not going to waste any more time. He's getting a late start as it is. Marc Miller.
This presentation I did in January. I developed it for the Mega Reinvention Virtual Conference, which was run out of Philly. And the woman Hollis, who was running this thing, asked me, said, can I talk about career failures and how I recovered? I'm on my 7th career. I turned 60 this year. And I claim I screwed up 3 times. And so the idea here was, how did I recover each time? And what I'm going to tell for you, some of you who are a little bit older, what I'm going to be telling you is heresy. Because to a large extent, we grew up in the era where failure was not an option. If you failed, you were a screw-up. We live in the day where it is never better to fail, because you learn each time. So, it's moi. By the way, I was born in New York City in the mid-1950s, raised in Jersey, went to Northwestern. I graduated from the Technological Institute, now known as the McCormick School of Engineering, in 1978. Went to work for IBM. I did what many of us did, was I was raised to be an employee, and I was to go work for a father-like company that would take care of me. We know that didn't work. And I claim that I spent 22 years wandering around IBM. Did I have a career path? Hell no. I started as a programmer. I was programming word processors. This is pre-IBM PC. As you might be able to tell, I don't like to sit a lot. I'm considered somewhat high energy. I sat in an office with a coding pad. I then went over to quality assurance. A little bit better. I ran an IT help desk for mechanical engineers. I had about 500 engineers I supported. Lots of funny stories from that.
Is this IBM here?
Yes, all here. I spent 22 years. That's it. I wonder, at various different times, I was offered jobs in Poughkeepsie. And my wife is from West Texas. My wife's an Odessa Permian graduate. You know Odessa Permian? You know, Friday Night Lights? My wife's a we went back for her 25th high school reunion back in '98, and they were still playing the 1973 championship football game on TV. So I went into I went into training. I ran a worldwide technical support organization. I then ruptured a disc in my back. Spent three months in bed, and came back. This was all during the time that IBM went through its near bankruptcy. So when I came back, I was clear, I was focused, and what I do, I crossed to the dark side. I went into an IBM briefing center where all I did for the next 7 years was present. I have a good friend, Tom Singer, who comes in. He says, "Yeah, after you presented 300 times, you start getting really good." I said, "Well, I was presenting almost 300 times a year." That got boring after a while, and this was the first time I went off to be an IT consultant. I went off into IBM Global Services. I hated it. And this will be my first career failure. When I left that, I went into marketing, which was a 1-year deal until IBM screwed me on my pension. And I then gave them the single finger salute. And I'm going to be polite. I'm not going to give them. And so what did I do? I went to work for a tech startup. GIRA, I wish I had the logo. We had a great logo. We were then bought out by Lucent. Lucent is famous for this logo. Anybody remember Lucent? Lucent used to be the most widely held stock in the world. This was the most screwed up company you ever seen in your life. We were then spun out as a Gear Systems. By the way, when we were bought by Lucent, there were 192,000 employees. When they merged with Alcatel, there were under 25,000. They spun out of Gear Systems, which was Lucent Microelectronics, which was, at the time, 17,000 employees. When I left 2.5 years later, it was under 6,000. I was on the team that was part of the team here that was ranking people, determine who got laid off next. Everyone did that. So, then I had a moment of clarity. In July of 2002, I was riding my bicycle down Westlake Drive. I came down a hill at about 25 miles an hour, turned into a blind turn, and I hit a car head on at 50 miles an hour. I was going 25, he was going 25. And by the way, there are four major bends in the bike. I do not show you the front wheel. I spent 5 days in the Brack Trauma Center. I tore up a knee, I broke a hip, I dislocated a shoulder, broke a bunch of ribs, broke the clavicle, had imprints to the pads of the helmet in my head. I had no brain injuries, I had no internal injuries and no brain injuries I'm willing to admit to. They had me walking on crutches in 3 days. They had me walking, I was back on a bike in 10 weeks, flying back to China in 4 months. The technical term was I was effing lucky. Those feed you about a 10% survival rate. So I then went off and got my teacher certification at ACC. I then went off and taught high school math. So I went from teaching engineers in China to teaching inner city kids Algebra 1, Algebra 2. It was very successful. I could not do this and stay healthy. When you are teaching school, you are doing something you've never done before every single day. And oh, by the way, you don't get to do it again for 1 year. And I had kids I couldn't help. So that's when I found LaunchPad in 2006. I've been with Kathy ever since. I then decided after teaching I would go off and I wanted to go in nonprofit. By the way, the first startup, GIRA, left us debt-free. My son headed off to college in 2002. His education was funded. We were in pretty good shape. I was 46 at the time. So I went off and got a job at the Jewish Community Center doing corporate fundraising. Being a non-Jew, being the face of a Jewish organization is interesting. One of the things I learned was I cannot work for a nonprofit. I am way too impatient. I am way too logical. I'm a recovering engineer. And working for a Jewish organization. I grew up in a high school that was entirely Jewish. We got Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur off the school holiday. So it's kind of like going home. I relapsed. I went back into another startup, Lifesize, which has since collapsed. I left. We got acquired by Logitech in 2000, into 2009. It got incredibly slimy. I was told to go hire the next CEO's brother who wasn't qualified, and I said, no. And I was told I didn't have a choice. I said, that's when I left. And I formed Career Pivot, which I launched the brand in 2012. So, the purpose here is, and I'm going to skip over these things. I'm going to stop for questions throughout this presentation, because this was originally designed as a webinar. The key piece here is I'm going to talk about 3 failures. The first one going into IT consultant. The second one was going into school teaching. And the third one was my stay at the gym. And what I want to talk about is what did I learn from each experience? Because I recovered from each. And two are much easier than the other two. So, first thing I like to say, I was seduced. And I've run into other clients. I have clients who have been similar, where they have been told that a job would be wonderful. It was going to be a great fit for you. And then you get in there and you realize, wow, this sucks. I actually went off. I was seduced by my former manager who I worked for in the briefing center. She left, went to work as a project manager, program manager. And I was told that, you know what, I was technical. I thought to myself, this is the late 90s, and IBM was getting dangerous. I need to get back to my technical roots. And you remember when I said when I graduated from college and went to work and was coding with a coding pad sitting at a desk? Well, what did I do? I got a job as an architect. Of all things, first project and only project I worked on was at Easy Corp. Pawn shops. Okay? By the way, their headquarters is right down here on Mopac, South Mopac. Wow. I go in there. I am working with unhappily divorced people, unhappily single people, and unhappily married people. They all traveled too much. I was one of 2 or 3 people who was local on a team of about 10. We were constantly having people cycle in and out. God, it sucked. 2, what was I doing? I was sitting all day writing technical specs. By the way, when I graduated from high school, I could barely read. Both my parents have off-the-wall IQs. My mother entered Columbia University in 1931 at the age of 13. By the way, she could argue with anybody on any subject whether she knew anything about it or not. She was a pain in the ass. I was very severely learning disabled. So I graduated from high school. I graduated from Northwestern in 3.5 years without ever taking an English course. Which, by the way, when I get to school teaching, was an interesting.
How did you do that? How did you do on the SAT though?
I got like 420 on my English and
420?
Yeah, I got 700 plus on my
Sounds
math.
sufficient.
Right? But so sitting there having to write all day. Ugh. After about 6 months, I went, this sucks. So I made one of the big things I made the decision was, this is not going to work. And so I didn't like my team. I was working on a company where we were loaning, not we, Easy Corp was loaning money to the poor at 20% a month. Not a year, a month. One of the things I did is I kept on trying to get transaction rates and trying to get information. And they'd go, well, you know, we have done it. I said, give me all the data for the 19 San Antonio stores for 3 years. One of the things I found was tens of thousands of $10 loans. Who gets a $10 loan? And I went to Bucky, my business analyst, and said, oh, gas money. Working poor, driving to work, he needs gas. He throws his wedding ring down, pawns it, comes back 2 weeks later, pays $12, gets his ring back. In every store, I found at least one loan that had accumulated between $3,000 and $5,000 in interest. By the way, maximum loan size is $500. Well, what had happened every single time was one of those items was a family heirloom, and they were not going to let it drop. So they were going to pay that 20% every month. I mean, it sucked. I mean, by the way, they will loan you money on 30% of what they think they can sell it for. This is not a deal. Although I did find one guy in Indiana who pawned his riding lawnmower for $30. Why? Cheapest place to store it in the winter. $6 a month, right? Cheap. He rolled it over twice. So, even though it had nothing to do with my job, it made me realize that not what it has to do with my job, but what the company values meant to me. What was the company mission? I am a mission-driven person. I can't do that. Oh, and by the way, I worked for a young project manager who at the end tried to publicly humiliate me in front of my team because I had grammar mistakes in the first report I turned in. And I tell him, no, and I quit. Now the goodness was I failed fast. I resigned from the project in 6 months. The key to my success was I said, this is not going to work. I screwed up by taking this job. 2, I had a plan B. I had not waited so long that I had grown stale. I wrote a bunch of posts about this, and one of the things I got back was I had a number of people reach out to me who, by the way, started businesses in 2000, 2007, 2008, which was a horrible time to start a business. And they held on because, you know what? They couldn't fail. They were gonna make this work. And you know what? They waited until 2012 to close the business down with $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in debt, which they're still paying off. On a contrast, I have a very good friend who's a recruiter at ARM who bought a staffing franchise in 2007. You probably know her, Jody Garrison. Jody shut it down after 9 months to a year. No, she said, this is not going to work. Yes, I'm going to lose the $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 I invested. Okay. And the third thing is, what did I learn from this? What I learned from it is, number one, my team is real important to me. When I worked in the briefing center in sales, my boss, Teresa, who seduced me, she was phenomenal at hiring superstars and leaving us alone. I worked with a great bunch of guys and gals. I mean, we had a great team. And the other was I learned about consulting. What I learned in 6 months working for IBM Global Services, I still use in my business today. Because what IBM Global Services did was they had all of these methodologies. And they did every project the same way. Now, it wasn't the best way of doing a project, but it was the most predictable way of doing a project. So therefore, when they bid projects, they knew what to bid. And 2, they bid things in stages so that at each stage, everybody had a chance to walk away. Both the customer and they had an opportunity to walk away, which was smart. By the way, I run my business career pivot that way. I run things in phases. So I learned a lot from this. And in many ways, I'm still glad I did it. Now, any questions for that? That was probably my first real failure, and I agonized over the decision to go off into IBM Global Services. And by the way, I cannot tell you how much I hated it.
Got a question?
Sure.
And Jeff, what was your moment of clarity when you said this was?
Oh, I was sitting in my cube, bored to my going, do I want to sit here and write all day? And then I said, there's several times when I started doing some of the homework on the data I was pulling out of. I just loaded into an SQL database and just started running queries, and I was just going. When you're loaning money to the poor, it's a really ugly business. Things like they were very careful. The pawn shops are very closely watched by the police. So therefore, they would actually train their employees to, if somebody walked in with a nice ping set of golf clubs, they'd start asking, well, what's your handicap? One of the things you learned was, about 60 to 80% of all stolen goods found in a pawn shop was stolen by a family member. In other words, dad goes on vacation, son goes in, takes his table saw, pawns it. Dad comes home, his table saw is missing. He reports it to the police. The police eventually find it. They know who pawned it. And by the way, dad about 90% of the time would prosecute. This was not a business I wanted to be in.
The cream of society.
Yes. So the next one was after my my near fatal bicycle accident. I said, I'm going to go get my dream job. I'm going to go teach high school math.
Bless your heart.
Right? And what's that?
Bless your heart.
Yep. By the way, I was very good.
Well,
And I've got lots and lots and lots of stories. So I decided I was going to go. I had to go to get hired by Austin Independent School District because AISD was the only school district that pays into Social Security. And if I went to work for Round Rock, Westlake, Keens, any place else, if I'd stayed too long, I could have given up my entire Social Security. So I went off to Austin Community College, and the first issue I had was expectations. I talked to a bunch of teachers, and they told me, yeah, we can get you in the classroom fast, you can go. What I learned was, you know what? I went to Austin Community College. I got rejected by Region 13. In fact, they wouldn't even talk to me. I got accepted into ACC's very first alternative certification class. By the way, every one of us who was male and over 40, we couldn't get interviews. No one would talk to us. The reason why, they don't want us. Why? We don't do what we're told. I got lots of funny stories of where they told me to do things. I said, wow, that's really stupid. You have to do it. Okay. I just didn't do it. So my expectations. I commonly joke the fact that I had more people come to me afterwards, after I was teaching, saying, you know what, I'm going to do what you're doing. And who were these people? They were largely white, middle class, raised in suburban households, and were educated. Oh, and by the way, they knew who their parents were. Okay, where are you going to get hired? Oh, I can go get hired in Ames or. No, I'm not. They don't want me. So where am I going to get hired? In a large urban school district, minority and majority population, poverty, and single parent households. What I did after I'd been there about 3 weeks, I went, Toto, we're not in Kansas anymore. One of the other things I realized, my wife is a former nurse and a massage therapist. All the teachers looked exactly like my wife. They were kind, caring, giving people who didn't know how to say no, didn't know how to negotiate, didn't take care of themselves. It was all for the kids. Were passive aggressive and risk averse. They're going to fire me. No. Again, this was my dream job. No, it wasn't. I wrote a blog post here recently called MSU Syndrome. I have lots of clients with MSU Syndrome. It's make shit up. You make stuff up here. This is one of the things I learned from, I've been all over the world. I've taught in 40 different countries. One of the things you learn whenever you go someplace new, you have all these expectations. They're never right. They're all the stuff that you made up. So the people going, well, I'm going to go teach in a school like I grew up in. No, you're not. They're not going to hire you. The one thing that I did not realize was the emotional investment. It killed me. I mean, my second year, we had 60 pregnancies in the school. 60. 29 freshmen. I had 6 pregnancies in my classroom. And by the way, I had all juniors and seniors. And by the way, none of them were from my I told all my girls, guys are scum. Oh, my boyfriend's wonderful. He's 17. No, he's not. He's 17. Why do you know? He's 17. Scum. Every 17-year-old boy is scum. It's genetic. And then I told all my guys that women were evil. They're going to screw with your brains. And hopefully I keep them apart. But one of the hardest things for me was I had kids I could not help. And that was hard. That was an incredibly hard lesson. My biggest mistake was I should have resigned after, I ended up resigning after the fall semester of my second year. I went into deep depression in October, November. Depression runs big in my family. I was downfall both years by daylight savings time. Daylight savings time would kick in. Literally, I was going to school in the dark and coming home in the dark. 2, I said, I did not realize how much emotionally it would wear me out. And I really needed to take a year off and rest, which I did. There are times in which you just flat, when you come off stuff, you need to take time and let yourself heal. I immediately landed a job. Of all things, I was a subcontractor to Accenture working on something called the TEARS project for the state of Texas. TEARS was a disaster. I was hired to train the trainers, and I was told the trainers were not trainers. They were caseworkers who wanted to see the project done. Really sweet people. I lasted 2.5 months, and when I finally got kicked off the project, I thought, yes. And I landed my nonprofit position after 10 months, and that was probably the toughest 10 months of my career. I was lost during the time which I found LaunchPad. Financially, we were fine, but that 10 months sucked. And in hindsight, I should have quit after my first year teaching. I waited too long to fail. Why? I felt horrible that I was abandoning my kids. And I had kids who loved me. And these kids were, probably 90% of my kids had probation officers, including the girls. Well, I had one senior, unfortunately, this is a class example. Between her junior and senior year, she got pregnant. Parents kicked her out of the house. She ended up moving in with her sister and brother-in-law, which was good. Child was born with spina bifida and hydrocephalus. We would visit her down in the intensive care unit, where she was there alone. She was 17 years old. I mean, you want to talk about, I couldn't have handled that as an adult, much less as a 17, 18 year old. Okay? Well, Grace, the one time I asked her, real pretty Hispanic girl, and I asked her one day, she said, yeah, I had to go get piss tested. I had to go get urinalysis. I said, why did you have to go get piss tested? She says, well, it's for my PO, probation officer. And so I asked her, I said, so why the hell do you have a probation officer? She says, oh, when I was a freshman, I used to get in fights. I was tough. You'd never know her. She was the sweetest kid. This rocked my world, and it was tough. So the lessons learned was, number one, I did not do my homework. I had a lot of people tell me what I wanted to hear. I did not understand just how, when people told me that teaching would be tough, I said, sure, I've done tough stuff before. It was tough emotionally. It wasn't, now, the ACC program I went through sucked. It was really bad. It was their first year, they didn't know what they were doing. This is 2003, 4. I did not understand what I was walking into. I did not understand the population I was walking into. In fact, what I walked into was a whole all-new culture, and it's a culture of poverty. Give you an idea, first year I'm teaching Algebra 1, I had a freshman girl come up to me, and I had a wonderful freshman Algebra 1 mentor. And the young lady asked me, she said, you going to be with us the entire year? Yeah. Well, what I find out from my mentor was she came from Florida's middle school, where in their 7th grade, their math teacher committed suicide in the first 12 weeks. In 8th grade, the math, and by the way, they created substitutes in the whole rest of the year. Their 2nd year, their math teacher quit after the first 6 or 12 weeks. So she had basically 2 years without a math teacher. Now, admittedly, these kids, they were brutal. But I had, for me, it was learning about adapting to just simply a new culture. Of my juniors and seniors, 90%, if you ask them what 8 plus 3 was, they count on their fingers. So what I do, I taught completely on the calculator. I adapted. If I can train engineers in China, I can teach these kids. I blew the doors off the tax stores. No one noticed. After my 2nd year, I had a University of Texas professor come to me. He says, I went through all the data. You blew the doors off. How'd you do that? I went, I adapted. I taught them calculators. I worked on the muscle memory in their fingers. My kids could clear a TI calculator without looking at it. And what I did was, I had, particularly my Algebra 2 kids, I had about 10% were going to college. So what I did was, I said, okay, you solve it on the calculator, I will give you full credit. If you solve it algebraically, I will give you extra credit. So those 10% of kids who were college bound would take the extra credit. And I didn't punish them because they couldn't do the algebraic stuff. By the way, that worked. I was the only teacher who did that. When I did my first year with my Algebra 2, I had a really good Algebra 1 mentor. With my Algebra 2, I had Jana Haley, who was 26 across the hallway. By the way, I was 46, I was old enough to be a father. After about 10 weeks, I went, can I have your lesson plans, please? And what I did from the rest of the year on was I stayed 2 days behind her. If she did something and I didn't understand, I could go down to her classroom and watch her. And I had to do that twice in a year. I ate my humble pie and went, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. This was hard. And by the way, I get lots of people saying, I'm going to go off into teaching. And I go, you really have to understand why you're doing this. This is not for your own self-fulfillment. If you want to help kids, and I would do it again, and I would walk in with a very different attitude. I'll give you an idea. My 2nd year, in the 5th week of the first 6-week grading period, they walked in with a 6-week Algebra 2 district-wide test. And I looked at it. It sucked. it was all tax-based. It was all language. By the way, my biggest problem with my kids was the fact that they couldn't read the damn questions. There were vocabulary. I had a lot of my kids had 1,000-word English vocabulary. By the way, 1,200 word Spanish vocabulary. And when you put words like depreciation on it, they don't know what it means. So I looked at it, it sucked. I said, so what's the penalty if I don't give this test? And they went, Miss Miller, you don't seem to understand. This is mandatory. So what was my response? No. What's the penalty if I don't give this? You don't seem to understand, Miss Miller. This is mandatory. I said, no problem. Put the test again, put it in the file drawer. I didn't give it. You can't make me do anything. By the way, I was mentoring my principal as we went through high school redesign. We were the first school to get a GATE grant. And one thing I learned at IBM, I re-engineered organizations twice, is I can't make you do anything. And she kept saying, well, we're going to tell teachers what to do and they'll just go do it. I said, no, they won't. Remember what I said about risk-averse and passive-aggressive? You ain't never seen a more passive-aggressive group of people. So, beware about taking, quote, these dream jobs. I had a client here recently, he said, I want to go work for the economist. He works for a financial institution right now, financial rating service. I said, so how do you know what's it like to work for the economist? Well, they write great stuff. I said, it may suck to work there. It might be a meat grinder. How do you know? Oh, I hadn't thought about it that way. It's called go talk to people and be able to listen through the filters. I didn't do that. Okay. And the last one I want to talk about is when I wanted to go into the nonprofit world, I spent about 6 months looking for a job. I pulled out every slick stunt I knew. I had no nonprofit background. I hadn't even started serving on the board with LaunchPad yet. And I said, you know what? Anything's offered my way. I can make this work. Okay. So what I did was I went to work for the Jewish Communities Association of Austin. They actually hired me because I wasn't Jewish. I had lots of business connections in town. As you can tell, I'm really shy. And, you know, this was, I got hired in October 2007. No, October 2006. And what I did is Greenlight's, now Mission Capital, had their annual conference. I picked out the 6 nonprofits I wanted to target. I got Mary Alice Carnes was running the conference for Greenlights. I schmoozed with her and she got me a list of everybody who's attending beforehand. So I knew exactly who was. So I had 6 people I was going to target. I was going to get face time at the conference. And by the way, I was a member of the JEC. I worked out there. I lived at that time just across from Mopac. I lived over in Allen. So the issues. Working for a nonprofit non-aligned with my interests. One of the things you have to understand, I've worked with several clients on this. These are cause-driven organizations. If you are not aligned with that cause, forget it. I've had a couple of clients who say, well, I just want to find a nonprofit to work for. No. They will not talk to you unless you are aligned with the cause. These are mission-driven organizations. Now, the other thing you have to understand, you really have to manage the expectations. I was hired to build a corporate development program. The challenge was, as I went in and I discovered, was many Jewish community centers across the country, which includes San Antonio, which has a much larger Jewish community than Austin does. You have a lot of Jewish business owners who give to their business. It's really a personal donation. We don't even have a Jewish-owned car dealer here. We have Michael Dell. And Michael Dell gave to us very nicely. And I kept on telling him. By the way, most people don't know that Michael Dell is Jewish. And people go, what? And I'm going, hey, most people don't care. So, well, so I didn't do a good job. The organizational challenges just blew me away. It's a nonprofit. $7 million a year budget. About 70% of the budget was raised through fees and services fees. 78%. By the way, this is a very similar model to the way the YMCA works. It's a service-based funding model. And we did a fall gala where we raised $350,000. It was a blowout. And I went to the CEO and I said, you realize that all we need to do is increase membership by 3% and we'll raise that kind of money? We don't want to do that. That's too hard. What? That's year over year. So they had no interest trying to run it like a business. One of the other challenges was, by the way, companies do not give philanthropically. They want something in return. So I was trying to work a deal with Sylvan to come in and do tutoring to our after school and our summer camp. I was trying to work with ADT, and the answer was, no, they're just give us money and we'll put their sign up. No, they actually want to sell to our membership. Well, we can't do that. We can't give them our membership list. I said, I'm not talking about giving them a membership list. They can give us their flyers, and we can print and do the stamping, put the stickers on, so they don't see, oh, no. They just give us money. Things like Whole Foods. Jim Sudd, who was on the board, Whole Foods will give us money. No, they don't. Whole Foods gives $0 to the community. They give all their financial contributions to the Whole Earth Foundation, which is around sustainable food chain. They give lots and lots and lots of product to the community. When I ran bicycle rides, I used to run all the big bike charity events around here. I could go to Whole Foods and get any number of bananas, bars, oranges. They give me all I want. Well, they're going to give us money. No, they're not. They're not. So, as I'm preaching to the choir of Shannon here. And again, what I didn't see was when I quit after a year, I would have been the third person in this position if I had stayed. I would have been the third person in a row who would have been fired. Not a good sign. So the results, I made the decision. I was going to resign at 6 months. I made the decision after a colleague of mine was verbally abused in front of me, and a month later was fired. Nope, I'm getting out of here. So I made the decision to quit after the fall gala. I very carefully, I waited to the 1 year mark. I timed it to the day so that I got the maximum benefit, make sure my next month's health insurance was paid for. I timed it carefully, and I almost immediately landed back at a tech startup. Again, lessons learned. I learned I can't work at a nonprofit. I can't handle it. No, right now I serve on 3 nonprofit boards. Different world serving on a board than working for one. More than happy to serve on a board. I cannot go work for one. And that was a very, very valuable lesson that I've carried to this day. Now, the goodness was, I made the decision at 6 months. This is not going to work. Now, I wasn't going to leave them in a lurch like I did IBM. I just said, I'm going to time this to when it is, yeah. The problem we have is, we were raised in the time of failure is not an option. If you look at Silicon Valley today, it's fail and fail fast. Try it. Now, I just did a book review on a book called End of Jobs. It's actually written by a guy here, until recently was here in Austin. And I'm going to be doing, I have an office hours on Monday nights on Blab. I'm going to have him on. Because one of the key things he said in there was, it has never been easier to be an entrepreneur. The barriers in my business. 10 years ago, I couldn't do what I'm doing. I got 2 books published. I haven't gone to a publisher. I've sold about 3,000 copies. I've got a website that tracks between 15 and 20,000 visitors a month. I've got right now clients in Germany, the UK, and all over the US. And I last year had a really cool client in Peru. And by the way, I use Skype. It's free. That 4-letter F word. 2, if you're going to fail, fail fast. Now there is a new book out, and I don't remember, it's called Will It Fly? I haven't read it yet, although I've got it on my Kindle. It's how do I test out my ideas? So I know so I can quickly determine, is this going to work? Now I could use example. I've got a Leadership Austin classmate who, what Elias has done, he has a workout glove design that he bought. He made a slight modification, put his logo on it. He got on Alibaba, found a manufacturer in China. He actually found 10 manufacturers and had each one of them produce a prototype. He picked the one that got the best quality. When they're manufactured, they're shipped to Amazon procurement, and he sells it on Amazon. He makes a couple grand a month. In fact, Elias and I were talking, and Elias is 36. Elias was talking to me yesterday. He's found a athletic bottle that has a place to put a key and your credit card in. So he's going to go buy the design and, again, find a manufacturer who's going to go manufacture it, put his logo on it, sell it on Amazon. And by the way, as the more products you get, the easier it gets to sell them. Give you an idea, like for example, I'm about to do a $1.99 sale on my book, my first Repurpose Your Ear. The reason why is you pay, I did a 99 cents, because when I come up with my second edition book, everyone who has bought one of my other books will automatically be contacted by Amazon that the new book is out. Automatically. So if I give away my new book, my older books for 99 cents, I make about 35 cents per book. It's great advertising for future. And so the more you have. So fail fast. And the important thing is, have a plan B. In other words, don't so totally commit yourself to the idea that I can't fail. This is gonna work. The answer is go into it, be realistic. If it doesn't work, know what you're gonna do differently. So, since I lost Career Pivot, I had one project that failed miserably. I had a thing called Cure for Career Insanity. I spent $1,000 on a video, which actually was pretty cheap. And I was doing it as a webinar series on kind of career exploration, understanding, again, mostly for folks who are later in career. It went nowhere. I invested very little money in it. I probably invested $1,500 into it. I got picked up 2 clients out of it, so I probably picked up $3,000-4,000. So, but the amount of time I invested into it, woo! But after a while, I cut it loose. That was hard. I'm sorry, I ain't used to failing. I still don't like to fail. So, the key piece here is every time you do, be ready to fail, but always make sure you learn something from it. I can say from every experience, I'm glad I did it, and I learned something. I take a lot of the stuff that I learned from IBM Global Services 17 years ago. I apply today. I'm glad I did it. It really sucked. So, if you, and this is in your handouts, I have a set of blog posts on mistakes. By the way, my Facebook page is lonely. Like it. I'm getting close to 1,000 likes. And feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. And by the way, all these links are in your handout. So, by the way, there's my personal branding book. I will, on Monday, be announcing a preview of my second edition. If you subscribe to my blog, you will later in the week get the first chapter. What I'm going to do differently this time is at the end of every chapter of my first book, I had a set of action steps. And I found the people who did the action steps would actually like the book. The people who just read it and said, I read it in 2 hours, what's the big deal? Which means they didn't do any homework. Then, yeah, they didn't get anything out of it. So what I'm going to be doing is adding some more worksheets to the end of each chapter, but I'm going to be doing a video at the end of each chapter. If nothing else, to kind of slap people around and saying, if you really want to, if you're going to get something out of this, and for most of us who have been working for a lot of years, we know when things have been really good, and we've known when things really sucked. Why? So like, for example, one of the exercises that I find people get out, who rot out, is take every job you've had in your career. How'd you find it? Why did you take it? What was it? What did you enjoy? What didn't you like? And why did you leave? You'll map those out. I guarantee you will see a pattern. And I'll make a wager, you will see a pattern and you're going, why did I make that same mistake multiple times? We all do. It's kind of like me starting my career coding and then going back to IBM Global Services where I'm writing technical specs. So, again, my email, I am, my Twitter. Who's on Twitter? Okay, you got to be on Twitter. I've actually kind of figured Twitter out for me.